And we're live.
Happy Sunday, everybody.
Happy Sunday, everyone. And today I did want to talk about something that I kept seeing, but I kept putting it in a back burner because I didn't know what was really going on too much
Right.
until I started doing my little research, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But it has been something that I've been wanting to talk about, and that's about the protesters. Let's talk about the protest that is going on right now. This has been going on in Chicago as the DNC convention started.
Yes.
So activist groups have planned demonstrations to protest what is going on in Gaza and many other things. So I do want to ask you today, Brenna, how do you feel about these protests taking place?
I think peaceful protesting is definitely a good way to bring together community. I think it's also a great way to bring awareness to causes because it causes you to pay attention. It causes you to focus. I mean, you like let's say you saw something going on, you saw a protest as you were driving down somewhere down the street in Atlanta. You'd be like, "What's that? What's going on?" You'd have questions, and then you would do your research and try to figure out what was going on at that particular building, and then you would get that information. So I do think that protesting, as long as it's peaceful, it's not violent, people aren't bringing out guns and causing harm to other people, but they're supporting our cause. I do feel like it's effective because it garners the attention of people that are in a decision making process and have the ability to start putting things in place to change the certain conditions that they're protesting about.
I do agree with you somewhat in that aspect, but you do have the people as well that don't believe in peaceful protesting because they feel like it's not proactive and
Of
it's not
course.
effective.
Right. Right.
So, I was watching a video of Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, and he says what's happening right now is not only like it's not only egregious, it is genocide. We have to acknowledge and name it for what it is and have the moral courage to exercise our authority. How do you feel about that statement?
Well, I mean, I think he does have a certain point to an extent. I think that, there have been also, I mean, we just talked about the peaceful protests. We didn't speak about, those that have gotten arrested and, charged with non-peaceful protesting. But I think the mayor's statement, I think, was kind of general. I don't think he was necessarily offering a solution. He was just kind of speaking to settle the situation.
Right. There was also a neighbor that they were speaking to that have been witnessing all the protests in Chicago, and he was very bothered by these protesters because he states it doesn't have nothing to do with us. So why protest it?
I think that a lot of people look to America and look to Americans, originally when things were calm and smooth, if there ever was a time that things were completely calm and smooth. But I think the goal of being in America was that you could come from anywhere and there was a place for you. You could come from anywhere and get an education. You could come from anywhere and build a family. You could come from anywhere and have a career. And you would also be safe here. There's a lot of countries that are in turmoil and in war. The stuff going on with Palestine, the Palestinians in Gaza, of course, is also concerning. And I think that people trying to, just escape to a better life because they're trying to get out of the situation that they're in, they should be welcome here. And I think that America is supposed to be the type of country that doesn't stand for mistreatment and misbehavior. But I say that to say this: America is also the country that supported slavery for many,
I
many
was just about to say that.
years.
Continue.
We supported slavery for many, many, many years. We supported segregation for many, many, many years. We didn't allow black and whites to use the same water fountain, to sit at the same um, counter when they wanted to get their Coke at the grocery store or Woolworths or whatever. Interracial dating and relationships was an issue, was a problem. So the picture that America paints that it wants it to be is not the America that we are actually living in today. There's a lot of discontent, there's a lot of unhappy people, there's a lot of people that are actually leaving America and moving on to other countries and other areas like Canada and things like that because of the policies and procedures that are in place. And they just see us taking a complete downturn and things just getting worse. So while protesting, I believe, is meant to be an eye-opening experience, an attention-grabbing experience, it is not always peaceful. There is violence that erupts. There's gunfire that erupts. I mean, just think about when they stormed the White House, and there was all the shootings and all that kind of stuff that was going on. The school shootings and things like that. So, I think America wants to be one thing, but in actuality, it's something else.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because they were saying that they're not just protesting about Palestine, which is that is the main concentration,
Right.
but they are also have included other liberation rights, reproductive rights, women rights, worker rights, LGBTQ rights, um, the Black Liberation Movement, immigrants' rights. So there is a broader range in this protest that has been calculated pretty good because now you have all the issues in one under the Democratic Party that
Right.
has been going on for years.
Yes.
So I think this is definitely bringing more people out to the streets.
Mhm. Yeah. And when I was doing my research, and going through like the history of Chicago, it was saying that, Chicago has some of the best policing in America. Mayor Brandon Johnson declared at a press conference on Friday morning the city mobilized 2,500 CPD officers, an additional 500 officers from departments across Illinois and in Milwaukee for the DNC. If the 1968 convention went down in history as the example of police brutality, then the 2024 convention will go down as an example of constitutional policing. I'm sorry. Yet demonstrators and advocates have called into question the use of force during arrests and whether the First Amendment rights of the pro-Palestine protesters were protected. So,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, but with that being said, I know it dates back years as far as protesting being in existence and being in particular cities and all of that. So, while they may have learned a lesson from all the brutality and the discord that occurred with the police department and the citizens of Chicago during 1968. I believe what he's trying to say in 2024, we're in a different state, we're in a different mindset. But I don't know that that's necessarily the case, because people are still getting arrested, people are still getting injured. We've not solved the issue with Palestine and Gaza. We've not taken care of the issue as far as women's reproductive rights. We haven't addressed the issues of us as people of color and blacks in general and our treatment. All the different miscellaneous, shootings of blacks in their homes, minding their business, the police getting away with it, not getting charged. There's just so much that is going on in that city, and pretty much, all over. But Chicago was just very significant for being known for holding protest rallies and things like that. And plus the DNC was there, so of course they felt that that was the appropriate location to
Not
uh,
only
put
that, but
that.
Chicago has a big population of Palestinian communities.
Yes.
But they said is around like 80,000 Palestinians who live in Chicago, and about 250,000 Arabs in the state
Mm,
of Chicago.
wow,
That is a great number.
that's a huge
Um,
number.
there is also known for a place, called Little Palestine. So,
Hmm.
in regards to this number, so I had no idea it was that many people. Do you think Biden could have turned off the war against Gaza?
I think that if Biden had been in the proper state of mind and had people actually giving him great direction and him listening to that direction and then following through on that, and all the people that are supporting, wanting to put an end to this war, I think it would have been possible. But I just don't think that Biden was in the mindset, the mind frame, or had the people around him really advising him on what was best to do. We've just seen him stumble and fumble and flunder when he has to do press conferences, when he has to do debates, when he has to do talks. So imagine him trying to make a decision to negotiate the end of a war.
It's really hard to watch this in real time. The reason I asked you that question was because listening to Palestinians regarding this war, they do feel like that this war is a U.S. war.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that's it. That is why I asked that question, because that is their belief. And it's so many here and all over the world that they're protesting for something they're standing on.
Right.
So this movement is putting pressure on the DNC. But what about Republicans?
Well, what I thought was interesting? I thought that was interesting when I watched, a lot of the clips and the playback and the interviews from the DNC, how many people in the Republican Party were not standing behind Donald Trump. And they would get up on that podium and they would say, "Hi, I'm a Republican." But what we've got going on right now is a need of change. We don't need someone in the office that's going to behave as Trump has behaved in the past. We've seen it. And just because I'm a Republican doesn't mean that I agree with what Donald Trump has to say. That surprised and that shocked me. I was very, 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 very shocked to see the number of people. I forgot what the actual number was, but it was pretty significant. It was a screen grab of Republican cabinet members and people on the committee. And then it showed like X's and then check marks for those that were with Donald Trump still and those that were not with Donald Trump. And there were more X's than there were check marks. And then the people that came out and spoke, talking about how they were Republicans, but they were endorsing, Kamala Harris because they believed that she was going to be the one to make the difference. Now, I don't think those same people would have come out and spoken, had it been Joe Biden still running for, reelection and trying to get a second term. I think everyone had the notion, and we knew for a while that he was going to need to step down, and there was no need for him to run again because he just wasn't equipped to be the leader that this country needed in the state that it was in.
Right. Do you think other races should get involved in these protests? And I'm asking this also for the public. So, guys, if you can input, we definitely want to know.
I think that I think that just because you're a member of a certain race, you can certainly identify with people of other races that might have to go through similar struggles, similar challenges, and similar things, being racially diverse and being a non-white person happen to be living in America. I always thought that it was a beautiful thing, when people were protesting Black Lives Matter. It was really nice to see that it wasn't just all Black people, it was Hispanics, it was Arabic people, it was, people, German people, French people. I mean, it was people from all different races and cultures that were supporting a movement simply because, they wanted to make a stand and they wanted to make a statement that, Black Lives Matter, and they do matter. So for different racial people to come together and to support a cause, I think is an amazing thing. And I think that is one of the foundations that America was meant to be built on, was that no matter what color of your skin, what religion you are, what race you belong to, or your cultural beliefs, there's a place for you here in America, and you can live your life with freedom and not be judged. So I
But do
do
you think it's more of a America thing or just a person, the individual?
I think it's
Because
I think it's individual.
I think so too.
I think it's individual.
So, um, in this Palestinian protest, they are not, they are protesting their beliefs of what's going on right now in Gaza.
Mhm.
The fact that it's happening during the Democratic Party convention, yeah, it's pretty calculated, but you can say that all these things have been happening under
Mhm.
Biden. So it kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just reading something really quick. Um
It definitely makes sense to me. I saw many videos of protesters clashing with the police. They said you can't even, there were some people saying you can't even get on the highway going south. They also said there are cops everywhere. Um, I mean, it's just, at first, when I was first looking at it, I was like, okay, it's just, another protest. But it seems like it's getting to a point where it can get really ugly out here.
oh yeah. That's a definite. That's absolutely for sure.
I mean, a lot of people seem to be uncertain about what could happen, especially with this war if it keeps going on. There's
Mhm.
no agreement. Um, a lot of people are dying, suffering. Ooh, it just seems like, yeah, it could get really ugly. And the streets are chaos right now. So yeah, I mean, I did see a lot of videos, like a whole bunch of videos on TikTok that people were posting, um, with the police being there. At first, when it first started, it seemed a little peaceful, but definitely has getting out of hand.
Yeah. It's for me, I just think that the continual coverage of the protests and then like the status of what's going on without resolution. I mean, it's not going to stop. I mean, people are going to continue to protest, and after a point they will reach a point where they're like, okay, we've been peaceful, we've been doing everything that we've been recommended and suggested to do, we followed all orders, we followed the laws, nobody's doing anything. And then I think there's going to be people that are going to rebel within that peaceful protesting environment. I mean, and say that we have to make a statement, because that seems to be the only thing that gets people's attention, is violence. Unfortunately, violence, gunfire, and the actual threat of war. So I think we need to be very careful, and very much need to keep our eye on this whole situation and how it's managed and handled, and what's the resolution, or what are the solutions available, to help put this to an end, and wrap it up.
And I think with all of the issues that we're having in America right now and all over the world, Russia, Ukraine, um, and all the issues we're having here, like, food prices going up, people are barely able to afford rent anymore. People are getting fired, businesses, like, there's a lot of issues going on right now. There's not too much help that the Democratic or the Republican Party is offering right now for the people. So I think with this war and all of the issues, people are steaming up from that.
Yeah, I would agree. And there is an article that I was reading, and I happened to pull it back up. And it's dated from a day ago. So it was yesterday. And the headline says, U.S. insists Gaza ceasefire deal is close, but diplomats are skeptical. Then it goes on to read, Israeli and Arab diplomats say a ceasefire deal in Gaza remains stymied by broad disagreements not reflected in U.S. statements. So when I read that first part, that it's not reflected in US statements, that to me meant that the US was leaving out information. They're not giving us the full scope of what's going on. They're not giving us the full picture. They're not giving us all the information. They're withholding information, which I don't know why they would do that. And then it goes on and says, that was my opinion. But then the article goes on and says, officials involved in Gaza ceasefire talks disagree on many things, but they are starting to find common ground on at least one position. The United States, a key player in the negotiations, has been overselling how close the warring parties are to reaching an agreement. Whether to stave off an Iranian attack on Israel, to pressure Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to end the war, or to boast progress during the Democratic National Convention, U.S. officials have in recent weeks insisted that the negotiations were making headway, while glossing over intense disagreements between Israel and Hamas, officials familiar with the matter say. So we're not getting the full picture.
No, absolutely not. That's good information.
We're not getting the full picture. So there's more to the story than what we're being led to believe. And with the Chicago mayor
I don't think we ever get the full picture.
no, we don't.
living in the United States.
No, we don't. We get the narrative that they decide to put out to us, and we have to either go with it or go against it. It's whatever.
And a lot of people are fed up with lots of issues going on and trying to survive and all this
Hmm.
extra stuff going on. Like, even with the Ukraine and Russia
Yeah,
war, it's like everyone is looking at the US as well.
yeah.
Um, Something is going to have to change. I did hear that, however, how do you feel about Planned Parenthood at the DNC in Chicago performing on the spot abortions and vasectomies?
I thought that was a little
And they said they were fully booked.
fully booked, yes. I thought it was a bit extreme. I thought the idea of having Planned Parenthood present in a location that would be able to offer support to those that are in need of birth control and health support, issues would be fine. But on the spot, I thought was a little bit much, but maybe that was the message that they were trying to send. I do think that Parenthood is much needed. There's not a lot, there's still a lot of people that don't have access to health care. They don't have access to the Obamacare plan. They don't have access to Medicare or Medicaid, and they have to pay out of pocket. And Planned Parenthood works with people on a sliding scale, or even offer some services free of charge, just to help keep people healthy, to educate, to advocate, and to work with people so that we don't wind up with populations of children that are not going to be able to be cared for because the people that are having them were not in position to have them in the first place. So while I think the idea was good, I think the on the spot thing was just a little a little extreme. Like, all right, come to this.
What do you mean about people that were not, like, that statement, capable of having them in the first place?
Yes.
So what do you mean by that? Elaborate a little bit.
So some people don't have access to healthcare. They don't have access to go see a gynecologist or access to go see a doctor. So maybe they need birth control, or they take a home pregnancy test and they find out that they're pregnant, but they don't have access to healthcare or Medicaid. They don't have the money out of pocket to be able to pay for those medical expenses. And that's where Planned Parenthood came in, would pick up and take care and follow these people through their health and guide them, educate them, and give them all of their options. So I do think that Planned Parenthood was very much needed. And for, Planned Parenthoods to be shuttered down and to be closed down because of the new laws that have been put in place and making abortions illegal under any circumstances. I think there's one state that came back and said that they would allow an abortion in the case of a sexual assault that resulted in a
What
pregnancy.
about mental? I'm glad you mentioned, okay, you're elaborating on it because I did hear a person say as well regarding into that DNC vasectomies and abortions on the spot. He was like, he is glad that people are able to do that because some people with mental health issues shouldn't be reproducing.
I think that if you're someone that is struggling with a mental health issue or an illness, as long as you are receiving the support and the guidance that you need, getting the help that you need to keep your situation under control, and you have the doctor's consent, and the doctor says there's nothing wrong with you having a child, then I think that's fine. That shouldn't be taken away from you. But if you have a diagnosed mental health issue or an undiagnosed mental health issue and you're just going off the rails, I don't think that it's in your best interest to bring a child into this world.
Okay, well, thank you for joining me today on this topic today. Hello, Four Kings Podcast
Hey guys.
Entertainment. And Do you have any final thoughts on this? Because I know, like I said, I've been wanting to touch on it for a minute now, and I'm glad we got around to it. There's a lot of things going on around us, and I definitely would like to start talking more about it because it's not like we're dismissing it. We have so many topics to talk about, but this one was definitely one that I wanted to bring into the books.
So, my final thought is it's actually a question to you and to the rest of you that are listening or tuned into the podcast. How do you all feel about Kamala Harris accepting the official nomination to run for president in place of Joe Biden stepping down from his position? Do you agree with that? Do you think that that was the right move, or do you think she was just in the right place at the right time?
I believe that, I definitely agree. Biden is not in a good place right now, with his, with everything going on with him. I know I've seen so many videos of him saying and doing things, and I had my questions about it from the beginning.
Yeah.
I've been telling y'all this, I've been talking about this. So the fact that, if they wanted to pick Kamala Harris to get his spot, then by all means, but somebody needed to get it.
Do you think there was any other agenda with pushing for Kamala Harris to become nominated and to be on the ticket to run against Trump? Do you think it had anything to do with her being the first woman president, her being the first woman president of color? I mean, do you think there were any other things going on behind that decision? Or do you think it was simply like she's the best candidate for the job? Let's go ahead and endorse and nominate her.
Well, it would, if you really think about it, it's not even about that to me. It's like it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
She's the vice president, you know what
Right.
I'm saying? So, of course, if you're trying to, well, I get what you're saying because there could have been someone else, but then they would have probably lost a lot of money
Yeah.
because that would have, you know,
They would have had to start from scratch with
yeah,
at
and
a,
it kind of don't even make sense to do that
right at this stage in the game. We're in August and the election is in November.
because I didn't even think they were able to replace Biden like that. I thought it was too late.
Mm-hmm.
But based on the situation, and remember, Biden did say if it was a health issue, which we already knew it was.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't take a genius to know that. Um, that he would drop out of the race. So I
Yeah.
mean, I to me everything was planned, everything was pre-planned, already meditated. So I mean, it is what it is now. Y'all want to give y'all comments on that? Definitely let us know.
I
Um,
I just asked the question because I've heard people say they're going to vote for Kamala just because she's Kamala, just because she's a woman, just because she's a woman of color, just because she went to an HBCU, like naming all these reasons other than what she can actually do for the country and what kind of policy adjustments and changes that she can actually that
and
she
you
can
know
act,
what I'm gonna
act-
say about that.
yeah.
See, back then when Andrew Yang was running for president, I was totally for him. He was talking about making all these changes and stuff like that.
I
I
remember that.
mean, honestly, right? Honestly, we'll just leave it up to the people because think about it. The Democratic Party been there for a while. So if you think that they'll do something now, I mean, I just say get new people in there.
Yeah.
Get new people in there. We see the same faces. We hear the same things. We hear the same songs. And it's like no action. Um, I will give my closing statement because I'm not going to hold y'all up tonight. But the major problem that I'm seeing today is mental health.
Yes.
And people are in this, like, in distraught. Like, they're going through a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think this can very well spiral out of control. And I
Absolutely.
just don't mean the war in Gaza. I'm talking about fully unrest, okay, with the stuff people are going through. Is so
Right.
many things right now that are in play that you just cannot take it off the table.
That's very true. Mental health has long been an outstanding issue, an underrepresented issue because there was such fear and such a stigma in talking about it. But I think more and more as we've begun to talk about it, and more as more and more people started to become public and discuss their struggles with mental health, and mental health issues, challenges that they faced. You hear a lot of people talk about, they've fallen into a depression, or, they have bad anxiety, or they were finally diagnosed, in their 20s and 30s as having, bipolar disorder, or severe depressive episodes. I was just on TikTok not too long ago, and like I watched somebody's video and they were like, some days for me it's so bad it's like I can't even get out of the bed, and other days, I'm up and about. In the TikTok video, like it first showed that, the guy was like in his bed just laying there, and then the next one showed him like in the kitchen like making his breakfast smoothie, and then he was getting ready and he was getting out and he was going on a run. So I think that we still have a lot of work to do when it comes to really having a grasp on mental illness. And, it's taught me to, be a little more graceful with people because you never know what somebody is going through. Maybe somebody is suffering with mental illness or has mental health concerns, and they're not diagnosed and they don't know. They just know that they feel a certain way. They don't know why they feel a certain way, but they feel a certain way. And we all know that mental health issues can affect your behavior, your personality, and how you carry yourself. And I just think we need to do a better job of being a little more, graceful and a little more kind to people that may be going through something that we don't know, because not everybody is even aware that they have an issue. Because again, that costs money, or having health insurance, or having access to free mental health services and things like that to get diagnosed and get on medication if it's medication that they need, or to get counseling or therapy or whatever the case may be. So I do think that we definitely need to continue to focus on mental health, and let's take the stigma away. Having a mental health issue is just like having diabetes or rheumatoid arthritis or high blood pressure. Just like something's wrong with your body, could be just like something's wrong with your brain. So if you're suffering from high blood pressure and your doctor tells you that you need to take medication, or your doctor tells you you need to change your eating habits and not eat so much salt, fat, and sugar, then that's what you do. But
Not only that, but I also think about the people who are actually living the nightmare of wars and
yes,
seeing their family members get killed, kids, I'm sorry, get unalived,
right.
seeing kids get unalived, that has to be the most traumatizing thing to go through.
Yeah,
So that plays a major part of a person's mental health. And right now, if this keeps going on, it's going to be a really bad crisis
it is.
that I don't know how people are going to be able to turn it around.
Right. You're right. I agree with you on that.
And I'll leave with that.
I definitely agree with you on that. Well, all I have to say is thank you guys for joining us and tuning in. Make sure you guys join us next week for another good conversation. And y'all stay safe. Be kind to one another. If you have any comments, feedback, anything like that, drop it in the chat. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page and check out our Instagram as well, Real Chill Conversations. Good night, everybody.
That's right. Good night.
Bye.